A barrage of questions followed. Are you involved in the data leak? Are you extorting companies? The FBI is investigating you. What do you have to say? Helen rushed out, pulling Lucas inside to escape the onslaught. The ancient wooden house of the Bennett family, nestled in the tranquil suburbs of Portland, has stood witness to 3 decades brimming with love. It has made the Bennetts the very picture of warmth, kindness, and enduring devotion. Walter Bennett, the 60-year-old father, is the soul of the family. A renowned psychological counselor, he has even appeared on national television programs about mental well-being. He possesses a calm, deeply thoughtful nature, speaking in a measured, resonant way that always touches the heart. A lifetime in his profession has granted Walter a profound understanding of human nature, and that same insight makes him the family's unwavering anchor. Helen Bennett, 58, a mother retired after over 30 years as a civil servant, embodies the traditional American woman, virtuous, gentle, and always putting family above all else. She tends to every meal, every corner of the house, and attends to each person's feelings with a quiet, deeply intuitive grace. Their only son, Lucas Bennett, 27, grew up under his parents' firm but loving guidance. A cybersecurity software engineer, Lucas is brilliant, outgoing, with a modern, easygoing charm. He is resolute in his work, yet vulnerable in matters of the heart, the kind of man who would move mountains for the one he loves. For the past year, the Bennett household has grown accustomed to the presence of Sophia Reyes, a sharp and spirited 23-year-old Latina law student working as a legal assistant at a small firm. Intelligent, strong-willed, and perceptive, Sophia is also profoundly genuine. She and Lucas met at a tech law seminar, and after just a few conversations, a warm, trusting love blossomed quickly between them. Both families gave their blessing, and Lucas considered Sophia his destined other half. But that peace began to tremble the moment Evan Carter, a 29-year-old wealthy, eccentric entrepreneur, reappeared in Sophia's life. Evan had pursued her relentlessly for 5 years, only to be rejected. His obsession has led him to a dark vow: if I can't have her, then no one will. And upon learning of Lucas's expertise in technology, Evan resolved to attack with the most dangerous weapon of the modern age, AI and deepfakes. The Bennett family's tranquility is about to face a storm they never saw coming. Monday morning in Portland, Lucas had just wrapped up his Zoom meeting when his phone began vibrating relentlessly. Messages flooded in from friends and colleagues, wave after wave of alerts. He frowned, puzzled, until one coworker sent a single link with a short, urgent note. "You need to see this right now." He clicked. The video loaded, and Lucas went still. It was explicit, 18 plus, and there, unmistakably, was Sophia's face, the woman he loved more than anything in the world. The clip was spreading across American social media like wildfire, crystal clear and terrifyingly real. Across town in a small downtown law firm, Sophia was at her desk when the office manager summoned her to the conference room. Her boss placed a tablet on the table, his expression grave. The instant Sophia saw the footage, the color drained from her face. She knew in a heartbeat it wasn't her. The body, the movements, the setting, everything had been fabricated, but the deepfake was so eerily perfect, so horrifyingly convincing, that she couldn't find her voice. Within hours, the firm asked her to take a leave of absence to protect the firm's reputation. Online, the comments exploded: cruel, merciless, hypocrite, two-faced girl, worse. Strangers who knew nothing about her life attacked her family name, branding her a fraud before the truth even had a chance to breathe. That evening, Lucas hurried to Sophia's apartment. He braced himself for her usual fire, her stubborn strength. Instead, he found her shattered, curled in the corner of the living room, trembling, eyes swollen and red. She could barely speak through her sobs. "It's not me, Lucas, but everyone thinks it is." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as tightly as he could, murmuring every comforting word he knew. Yet beneath his steady voice, a cold dread was taking root. Who had the skill to create something this flawless, and why? He had no idea this was only the opening shot in a battle that was just beginning. But as he drove her to the Bennett family home that evening, the images from the clip clung to his mind like shadows. Not because he believed them, never that, but because the realism was so chilling, so flawless, that it shook him to his core. He knew deepfake technology better than anyone in the family, and that knowledge now turned against him, whispering doubts he hated himself for feeling. Was there something he didn't know about Sophia, or had someone deliberately crafted this nightmare to tear them apart? Sophia felt the change almost immediately. His gaze was still tender, still full of worry, but behind it lingered the tiniest hesitation, a flicker of uncertainty that sliced through her heart. The deepfake hadn't just destroyed her reputation, it had struck at the very foundation of their trust. And the cruelest part? Whoever was behind it knew Lucas's deepest vulnerability. He loved with everything he had, trusted without reservation, and when that trust wavered, the pain cut deepest of all. That night at the Bennett house, Helen moved through the kitchen with quiet determination, setting the table as she always did, trying to wrap the evening in the familiar warmth of home-cooked meals and soft lamplight. Walter sat at the head of the table, watching the two young people he loved like his own. With a lifetime as a psychologist, he sensed the invisible tension immediately, the way Lucas's shoulder stayed rigid, the way Sophia's eye stayed fixed on her plate. Lucas's usual steady gaze had cracked. He wasn't saying it, but he was wrestling with something heavy inside. Sophia was silent. After dinner, Walter asked Lucas to step out onto the back porch. The porch light cast a warm golden glow across the older man's calm, weathered face. He spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of years. "You can't lose the woman you love just because the truth hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Your ears may hear lies, but your heart knows what's real." Lucas bowed his head, unable to argue. Walter rested a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "You're letting fear steer you right now. Remember, the thing that looks most obvious is often the most dangerous." Walter's words stayed with Lucas all through the long, sleepless night, but Sophia had no idea. All she felt was the growing distance between them, a quiet ache neither of them wanted, yet neither knew how to bridge. That weekend, just when it seemed the storm might finally be easing, another one hit with brutal force. Sophia's phone buzzed with a message from a friend. "You need to see this video. I'm so sorry." Only a few words, yet they left her hands ice cold. She clicked the link, and within seconds her heart shattered completely. On the screen was Lucas, or at least his unmistakable face, kissing a stranger in a dimly lit Seattle bar at 11 o'clock at night. The footage was grainy, the telltale blur of security camera video, everything looking painfully real. The woman wore a striking red dress. The man, who looked exactly like Lucas, smiled, his hand resting on her waist. 30 seconds long, but long enough to tear down every fragile thread of trust Sophia had been clinging to for days. She sat frozen on the sofa, lips trembling. The sting of betrayal, whether real or not, felt like a cold blade twisting in her chest. Meanwhile, Lucas was still at the office, completely unaware that a new crack had just opened between them. That evening, the moment Lucas stepped through Sophia's door, she rushed at him, voice breaking. "Is that you? You were in Seattle that night, weren't you?" Lucas froze, confused. When she shoved the phone toward him, the color slowly drained from his face. He recognized it instantly, a deepfake CCTV clip. The low resolution made it even harder to spot than a normal video. The AI had only needed to tweak a few details to make it flawless. But Sophia was beyond calm reasoning. In front of her eyes, every sign pointed the same way. Lucas had doubted her, and now here he was in a compromising video of his own. The worst argument they'd ever had erupted. Lucas tried to explain, but Sophia was reeling from fresh pain layered over wounds that hadn't even begun to heal. Finally, she broke down in tears, and Lucas stood helpless. He knew now, with sickening certainty, that a dark scheme was unfolding in the shadows, pulling them apart piece by piece. After the bitter fight, Lucas and Sophia drifted into that painful limbo, half wanting to talk, half afraid any word might make things worse. They moved around each other carefully, like strangers sharing the same small space, both too wounded to bridge the gap. But that fragile silence was exactly what Evan had been waiting for. He didn't want to destroy their relationship with one swift blow. He wanted to erode it slowly, bit by bit, until they tore each other apart without ever realizing the hand guiding the knife. That evening, Sophia was quietly sorting papers in her small apartment when her phone buzzed, an audio file from an unknown number. She pressed play, and within 3 seconds, her blood ran cold. It was Lucas's voice, unmistakable, the familiar cadence, the way he drew a breath between sentences, every inflection perfectly his. In the recording, he sounded exhausted, almost bitter. "I'm tired of her. You were right. Sophia and I don't fit anymore. I want to come back to you." The phone slipped from Sophia's hand and landed on the bed. She told herself it could be fake, but the voice deepfake was flawless. No glitches, no distortion, no trace of artificiality. Every nuance was smooth, terrifyingly real. Yet that wasn't the final blow. In the dead of night, a flood of texts began arriving from another unknown number. "Lucas is seeing his ex again. He regrets choosing you. Lucas says you're too sensitive, too much drama." The messages kept coming, relentless. Sophia sat motionless on the bed, tears streaming down her face, no longer able to tell what was real and what was poison. Helen, Lucas's mother, who had always loved Sophia like her own daughter, came over when she heard Sophia had taken an extended leave from work. The moment she saw Sophia's hollow cheeks and shadowed eyes, Helen sat down beside her and took her hand. "You don't have to carry this alone, sweetheart," she said softly. "No matter what's happening, you're still family to us." Meanwhile, Lucas was beginning to sense the pattern. The events were coming too fast, too perfectly timed, too precisely aimed at their weakest points, as if someone knew them better than they knew themselves. After days of being swept away by raw emotion, Lucas finally forced himself to stop and look at everything with the clear, methodical mind of a cybersecurity engineer. He sat alone in the quiet home office at the Bennett house in Portland, the glow of the computer screen the only light in the room. He pulled up every file related to the 2 deepfakes, the clip of Sophia and the Seattle bar footage, knowing the truth was never on the surface, but buried in the hidden layers of data beneath. He began dissecting the CCTV video from Seattle frame by frame. Zooming in, pixel by pixel, he hunted for the tiny imperfections that even the best AI still leaves behind. About an hour in, he found the first crack. Along the edge of Lucas's face, there was unmistakable frame blending, a subtle artifact where frames had been merged. To most eyes, it would be invisible, but to Lucas, it was a glaring sign of deepfake technology. He rewound, played it again and again, then cross-referenced it against his own family security camera footage. Piece by piece, the small clues connected into something far larger. Someone was carefully constructing an entire story to destroy their relationship, not just spreading lies, but timing them perfectly, striking at their exact vulnerabilities, knowing their hearts better than they knew themselves. As he scrolled through the list of people who had ever been close to Sophia, one name rose to the surface like a dark shadow: Evan. Lucas remembered the cold, unblinking stare Sophia had described from the times Evan had appeared around her. He remembered the story she told, how Evan had pursued her for 5 relentless years, refusing to accept no for an answer. A kind of obsessive fixation Lucas had once thought existed only in the psychology books his father kept on the shelf. Lucas leaned back in the chair and drew a long, steady breath. Everything fit together too perfectly. It wasn't random. It wasn't coincidence. A single hand was pulling every string. And he knew with chilling certainty that he had to uncover the truth before it was too late, before everything slipped beyond saving. While Lucas pursued his quiet investigation, somewhere far away, Evan Carter plunged even deeper into the twisted grip of his obsession. He had hired a clandestine AI studio tucked away in Los Angeles, a shadowy operation that thrived on dubious commissions, including the perilous simulation of human behavior through advanced deep learning systems. For Evan, shattering Sophia's reputation simply wasn't enough. He craved a version of her that he could control completely, utterly. In a dimly lit room blanketed by glowing screens, Evan directed the technicians to feed in thousands of her photos, videos, and voice recordings. Every piece was funneled through an intricate web of AI models: voice cloning, facial reconstruction, behavior emulation. It went beyond mere looks and sound. Evan demanded the recreation of her conversational rhythm, that subtle tilt of her head in moments of thought, even the faint furrow of her brow under pressure. The studio dubbed it human behavior training, a controversial technology whose mere existence stirred fierce debates about right and wrong. When the first avatar materialized, Evan initiated the test run. On the screen flickered a digital Sophia, her long hair cascading, her eyes sharp and knowing, her face a blend of softness and unyielding strength, so eerily real that it could fool anyone into believing she breathed. The voice emanating from the speakers was flawless, warm, articulate, pulsing with life. "Ready to chat, Evan?" The virtual replica spoke. Evan's lips curved into a smile, cold, bone-chilling. "That's right. This is the Sophia I've always wanted." He engaged the avatar as if she were flesh and blood. He questioned, it replied. He teased, it responded. Every gesture, every exchange flowed seamlessly, naturally. For Evan, this unlocked a rush of total dominance, a private realm where Sophia could never turn him away. The more he immersed himself, the more the illusion consumed him, blurring lines until he believed this phantom was genuine. It was a perilous deviation, shattering every boundary of morality and human decency. And from this dark seed, the real war between AI's promise and its peril truly ignited. Just when it seemed the nightmare might be reduced to nothing more than ugly online gossip, Evan delivered a blow far more dangerous: a meticulously staged video, complete with forged documents and accusations that Sophia had stolen patient data from the medical company where Lucas had once consulted, then sold it for profit. The video was chillingly convincing: a simulated office setting, doctored emails, and a fabricated audio recording that casually referenced sensitive health information. The evidence looked 99% real. The story exploded. Local newspapers ran front-page pieces, and within 48 hours, the scandal had escalated to federal level. A federal investigator arrived in Portland, summoning Sophia for questioning and demanding she turn over records. Because the charges involved protected medical data, one of the most serious offenses in America, the FBI announced it would step in temporarily to safeguard data security. Overnight, the entire Bennett family found itself under the harsh glare of both the media and the law. Walter, the renowned psychologist, understood immediately that this was no longer just a technical battle of evidence. It had become a crushing psychological assault. He moved swiftly. He called a trusted attorney, coached Lucas and Sophia on how to speak with investigators, and worked tirelessly to shield the family spirit. To the cameras, he remained calm and composed, but inside, Waldrew was mapping out every possible strategy to protect his son's honor and the woman who would soon be his daughter-in-law. Helen's response was pure, fierce maternal instinct. She stood by Sophia as if she were her own daughter, cooking for her, defending her to nosy neighbors, absorbing the cruel remarks so Sophia wouldn't have to, and driving her to every meeting with the lawyer. She never wavered. The tragedy was that as the FBI investigation deepened, the personal rifts widened even further. Friends were forced to take sides. Clients grew wary. The Bennett family, once the warm, unbreakable symbol of love and stability, suddenly stood under a cloud of doubt and suspicion. From a safe distance, Evan watched it all unfold, a satisfied smile on his lips, savoring the taste of early victory. But he had no idea that the small clues Lucas had begun to uncover were quietly leading straight to a reckoning that would cost him dearly. In the relentless days of being battered by the media and the federal investigation, Lucas was nearly broken. Yet in the very moment when everyone else was lost in the chaos, he spotted something no one had noticed, one small detail buried deep in the flood of leaked data. That night, long after the house had fallen silent and everyone else was asleep, Lucas sat alone before the screen. His face was drawn and hollow, the harsh blue light from the laptop reflecting in his bloodshot eyes. He looped the forged email, the one Evan had used as damning evidence against Sophia, again and again. To anyone else, it looked flawless. To a cybersecurity expert like Lucas, the tiniest flaws in the system code were unmistakable fingerprints. And then he saw it. "No way," Lucas whispered to the empty room. In the metadata of the email file was a UUID that matched nothing from the medical company's systems. It belonged to software once used in covert AI research projects at the university where Evan had studied, a piece of evidence as sharp as a razor. Lucas immediately cross-referenced it with the earlier files, and everything aligned. The same encryption style, the same data compression algorithm, and most crucially, the same server signature tied to a virtual IP address Evan had once boasted about to Sophia as part of his ultra-secure private network. Lucas's palms grew slick with sweat. This wasn't just a clue. This was gold, irrefutable proof that the entire scandal had been engineered with AI and deepfakes. But the rush of discovery was quickly overtaken by dread. If he had found this trail, Evan had to know it existed, and if Evan realized Lucas was closing in, he wouldn't stay idle. Lucas acted fast. He printed every scrap of evidence, backed it up onto 2 separate hard drives, and hid the copies in 3 different places. He told no one, not Sophia, not his parents. The more people who knew, the greater the risk. In the quiet glow of the late-night lamp, Lucas gripped the folder tightly against his chest. For the first time in weeks, a fierce, burning resolve flared in his weary eyes. "Evan, you've gone way too far." While Lucas tirelessly combed through the data, in another corner of downtown Portland, Evan Carter sat alone in his sleek, glass-walled office on the 22nd floor, overlooking the city shrouded in night mist. On the screen before him, a series of red alerts flashed urgently. Evan raised an eyebrow. The hidden IP tracking system he had embedded in the forged files had just detected unusual activity. Someone was tracing back through the layers of code he had created. No one else but Lucas Bennett. Evan let out a low, icy laugh that lingered at the corner of his mouth. "So you're not as stupid as I thought." But the laughter died quickly. His face darkened, eyes flashing with cold menace. If Lucas had found the trail, everything Evan had so carefully built could collapse at any moment. Once the truth came out, Sophia would return to Lucas, and that was something Evan would never allow. He rose, walked to the control panel in the corner, and placed his hand on the scanner. A new interface sprang to life, rows of deepfake simulations, AI scripts, and fabricated evidence files already queued for Phase 2. Evan muttered under his breath, "If you want to play, I'll let you play all the way to the end." He immediately triggered a new wave of attacks, more sophisticated, more vicious, designed to obliterate Lucas's reputation in a single night. The AI system began compiling images, videos, and forged chat logs, weaving a story that Lucas had manipulated company data, stolen information, even orchestrated a virtual blackmail scheme. One click, and the world would turn its back on Lucas. Before pressing send, Evan glanced up at the hidden camera feed he had secretly installed outside the Bennett house long ago. Lucas had just stepped out the door, backpack slung over his shoulder, undoubtedly carrying the evidence. Evan's lips curled into a sneer. "Too late, Lucas. You're not going to make it." He hit send. Within seconds, a new media storm began to erupt. Just hours after Evan pressed send, the morning dawned on Portland in utter chaos. The Bennett house phone rang without pause. Emails, text, reporters, everything crashed down like a furious storm. Helen was the first to see the news. She froze in the middle of the kitchen, phone screen glowing in her trembling hand. Cybersecurity engineer Lucas Bennett suspected of data manipulation and corporate extortion. Internal sources confirm the FBI is reviewing the case. Her hand shook so badly she had to set the phone down on the table. In the living room, Walter was watching the morning news when his son's face appeared in the breaking story. The anchor was calmly dissecting a large volume of leaked data showing suspicious activity by Lucas Bennett. Walter's breath caught in his throat. "No, my son would never do that." At the same moment, outside, dozens of reporters had already descended, crowding the driveway. They pounded on the door, shouted Lucas's name, microphones thrust toward the house as if they could pierce the walls of the once peaceful home. Helen rushed to close the curtains. "Walter, we have to call Lucas right now." But Lucas didn't answer. He was on the road, heading to meet an independent legal expert to verify the golden clue he'd uncovered. He had no idea the media storm had already erupted behind him. Back at the house, the pressure reached its breaking point. Neighbors whispered, news vans parked right at the curb. A few people even shouted accusations at the windows, condemning Lucas without any real proof. Helen broke down in tears. "What's happening to our family?" Walter wrapped his arms around his wife, but even he couldn't hide the fear and fury burning inside him, not at Lucas, but at the people tearing his family apart day by day. In that moment, the Bennett home was no longer the warm, safe haven in Portland. It had become a battlefield where honor, love, and trust were being ripped apart in a matter of hours. And no one yet knew this was only the opening act of the nightmare. The morning Lucas returned to Portland was the moment everything reached its most suffocating peak. He had barely stepped out of the car when he saw dozens of reporters crowding the driveway, cameras flashing, voices shouting over one another. "Are you involved in the data leak? Are you extorting companies? The FBI is investigating you. What do you have to say?" Helen rushed out, pulling Lucas inside and away from the swarm. Walter slammed the door shut and drew the curtains. When the door finally clicked closed, the whole family stood motionless for a few seconds. No one spoke, the air thick with nothing but the sound of their breathing. Sophia ran to him, wrapping her arms around him tightly. Her voice cracked. "I thought something terrible would happen to you in LA. The media is destroying everything." Lucas rested his hands on her shoulders and said only one thing. "I found the evidence. We're ending this today."
That afternoon, the family, Lucas, Sophia, and Walter, sat down with the FBI agent handling the deepfake case in the Portland field office. Lucas laid out every piece of proof: the watermark from the AI studio, the payment records Evan had sent to the deepfake team, and most damning of all, an audio recording of Evan confessing everything. When the recording played, Evan's voice came through cold and metallic, every word unmistakable. "Sophia has to be mine. If she can't be mine, she can't be anyone's." The room fell silent. The FBI agent looked at Lucas and gave a slow nod. "This is more than enough for an emergency arrest warrant. We're moving now." 3 hours later, Evan was taken into custody at his penthouse in Vancouver, Washington. He tried to smile, tried to look composed, but panic flickered in his eyes. As the handcuffs clicked shut, he managed one last remark to Lucas.
The deepfake videos were taken down. Sophia's reputation was officially restored, and the law firm welcomed her back. The Bennett house could finally open its windows and breathe again after nearly 2 weeks of being suffocated by scandal. That night, at a small lake a few miles outside Portland, Lucas set up a simple dinner under warm golden lights with American wine and a small ring box tucked in his pocket. When Sophia arrived, the sunset reflected across the water, turning the scene into something straight out of a quiet, romantic film. Lucas dropped to one knee. "We've been through the worst things imaginable. If you'll have me, will you marry me?" Sophia burst into happy tears and nodded through her laughter. They held each other for a long time, as if they had finally stepped out of the darkness that had weighed on them for so long. 3 months later, a small wedding took place on an Oregon beach, intimate and warm, just family and a handful of close friends. Helen held Sophia's hand as if she were her own daughter. Walter gave a toast in his deep, steady voice. "Love is trust, and trust is choosing to walk beside each other forever." Lucas and Sophia exchanged rings to the gentle sound of waves. Everyone thought it was finally over, but during the reception, when Sophia opened her phone to check a message from her cousin, an anonymous email appeared. "I'm still here. Evan was just a pawn. The real story is only beginning." Attached was a photo of her and Lucas exchanging rings. The angle was from high above, a vantage point that didn't exist on that stretch of beach. The metadata showed the image had been created by AI, but the source could not be traced. Sophia's face went pale. She whispered, "Lucas, someone is still watching us."